Hi everyone and welcome back. In today's video, we're gonna start working on the login endpoint. In previous video, we just finished working on the register endpoint. And before we get started, make sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel to get notified by new content. Here, we're gonna move to the login form and start integrating the login endpoint within the VueJs application. Now here you can see within the all folder. Within the off folder, we got only one actions in actions folder, and we need to create another action, which is going to be the login user.ts. And you can see within the register.user, we got a fetch API request, which points to the register endpoint. We are going to copy this code, and let me copy this code and paste it within the login.ts action. And here you can see if we move to the off controller, on the off controller and login, you can see here we got our login method returns two keys, an array of two keys, the user, which is the logged in user, and the token, it is secret key. Now we need to specify the return type for this login user HTTP function. And here we are going to change the response type. We're going to pass here the ID because our login method in Laravel returns an ID, a string, and an email of a logged in user. But also here the token, it is a string. And we need to replace the register response type with this login response type. And here we need also to import the iLogin input interface within the login user. And then here I'm gonna import it. Let's import this interface. Yeah, and change the endpoint to login. But also here I think we are done within this file. Now let's move to the login page and start interacting with the login endpoint. And here you can see we already creating a function right here, login user. I'm gonna call the login user HTTP within the login page here. And here I'm gonna say const data await. I'm gonna call the function, and here you can see this is an asynchronous function here. And here also we already implemented the validation on this function. You can see that our validate function returns a boolean, but also we need to add here an await keyword because our validation, it is a promise. We need to await for the result. And then here we need to call, let's import this login user HTTP action and then pass it login inputs, and here that value. But also we need to import one more component within our login page. Here you can see we still have this button. Our button, it is not dynamic. We need to use the base button that we created previously in past video. And let's get into the register page and import this base button. We're gonna use it within the login page and copy it right over here and this, and let's import it from the base component. I'm gonna do this, get into here, I'm gonna do import base button from I'm gonna do from component dash base button dot view. We just imported this component base button. We are going to use it, and we need to change also the label to login. But also we need to change one more thing here. We need to create a constant const loading status. Then I'm going to say ref false. We are going to call this when we are going to run this login user HTTP response. We are going to change the loading status to false first, and then once to true, and then when the login user HTTP response is gonna end up, we are going to change it to false. But also we need to wrap this code within the try catch block. We're going to use try catch to catch the error. And here I'm going to call a method. If we get into the login method, you can see that here, when we got a validation error, this code right here, we are returning an array of errors. That's what we need to catch here. We are going to do for const, we're going to create a constant. I think you can see rm of errors as string. Here I'm using type assertion. I'm casting the error as a string because, as you know, we are returning an array of errors. Yeah, and let me do this. Okay, I think you get a better view. Now here we need to show the error. I'm gonna call the show error toast notification function, and I'm gonna pass it here. This is going to be the message. I'm gonna pass it the message, and yeah, the error disappear. Now we need to do one more thing. I think we should display the error. Here you can see that our login, our variable here data, returns a login response data. If we get into the login HTTP, we can see that our promise, our login use HTTP returns a promise of login response type. And if we get in the login page, you can see that our data variable, if we over, you can see TypeScript infers the data variable to be a login response type. And this is what we're gonna store within the local storage. We're gonna do local storage dot set item. We're gonna say user data, and then I'm gonna pass the data. I'm gonna say JSON. I'm gonna convert this data JSON.stringify. Yeah, I'm gonna set local storage. I'm gonna keep this within the local storage. I'm gonna keep the logged in user within the local storage. Here using the local storage API set item user, the key, and the value. Now here I think we just finished. Now we need to test if this endpoint it is working pretty well. Now let's get into the browser and try to test. Yeah, I run. You can see it doesn't get any response. Let me get into the console and get into the console tab within the network tab and see if everything is working. Actually, it doesn't have a better insight. When I click here, you can see, yeah, you can see that we just logged in the user. You can see here the server returns an object which of the logged in user. You can see here an ID of 12, name Ben, and email. But also it returns also a token. You can see the logged in user, email verified it, and here we got also updated the token. You can see it means that our login endpoints that we just implemented within the VueJs, it is working pretty well. Now we need to, if I pass here bad email, let's try to see if it is going to return an error message. Let's see here. It doesn't get any response. Here you can see we got here a message, email password invalid. And here what we need to do is to get into the login page, login page, and move here. We are going to do this here because it is returning. We're going to do first error dot message, and then here I'm gonna type the error variable to any first to see what we are going to get for debugging purpose. Now here, let me try it again. Let me refresh. Let me pass a bad email. and let's check. Yeah, you can see we are getting here message, email password invalid, but also we need to reset this loading, this button. We need to change the state when we finish processing here like this. And here I'm gonna do this here, copy, I'm gonna copy this and paste it over there. And that's pretty much it, guys, I think here. And if we go to the, if I try to test again, nothing, it means that we just logged in the user. If I pass a bad email, we just get an error, email password invalid. If we get into the register form and I click register, guys, you can see here our validation error doesn't working pretty well. If we get into the login page here, you can see that we didn't add here a wait on the validate here. If we over the validate function, you can see that it returns a boolean, a promise of boolean, which hold a boolean, and we should use here a wait because we need to await the validation, the Vue validator to finish the process in order to launch a query to the web server. If I click again here, you can see it doesn't launch a query to the web server because the Vue validator, it is not valid. The validation, it is not valid. Now you can see we just finished working on the login page. Now we need to add one more thing, guys. I'm gonna do this window location href equal to /admin. We're gonna move to the admin area if we logged in. I'm gonna click here and then boom, we just get into the administration page. Guys, now let's secure this administration page here, and we need also to display the name of the logged in user. Here you can see we still have a placeholder. We need to display the name and email, and also we need to interact with the logout endpoints, and we are going to create also a post. Now let's get into VS Code here. Within the helper folder, I'm going to create two files. The first one, it is going to be verify token.ts, and another file, it is going to be get user data.ts. And here let's create first a function get user data, and then here I'm gonna extract data within the local storage. Here you can see I'm gonna call it const use data, then I'm gonna use local storage that get rm use data, because here when we log in our user, we store its data within the local storage. We do local storage set rm use data. Now we need to extract this data. Let's get into here, and if I copy this code right here within the browser, let's see where we store within the browser. And here, if I move to the console tab and copy this code right there, you can see that this code store an object of a user and includes with it and its token. And also we need to extract it. Yeah, we are getting this function right here. It is returning this JSON string. Now we need to convert this JSON string to a JavaScript value, and we are going to use here try catch first. And here I'm gonna check first, because here if we over the user data, you can see TypeScript infers it to be a type of string or null. And here I'm gonna check if type of use data is not an object. And then here I'm gonna create another constant, say connected user, and then I'm gonna do this. Let me zoom. I'm gonna do JSON pass dot parse, and then I'm gonna pass the use data, and let's try to over the connected user. You can see that the connected user has a type of any, and we need to tap this variable right here. And let's get into the login action here we got here the login action, login user, and we got a login response type. This what our endpoints of login returns to this function, and we need to export this login response type within the get user data, and we're gonna tap this variable right here with that, and then we're gonna import it. And here you can see that right now we just tap our login, our connected user variable, and it returns an object which contains a connected user ID, name, and email plus the token. We need to return it to this function connected user, and here we're gonna catch the error, so console log error. Now you can see if we over our get data function, returns a login response type or undefined. Now let's display here. We need to display here the name and the email. And let's get into the dashboard. Here, this is the dashboard. It is right here. We need to get into the admin page and move up here. You can see we need to display here the logged in user. And what we are going to do is to call this function get user data, and then the get user data is right there. You can see it returns a login response type or undefined. Here we are going to do this. We are going to call this function right here, and I'm gonna do this. I'm gonna store it within user data, and then I'm gonna do this. Once this function is right there, cannot be used as value because it was imported. And here I'm gonna do this. I'm gonna copy user data, and then I'm gonna do this, that name, that here, that user, that name. And I'm gonna display also the email address of the logged in user, then here email. And if we get into the administration page, you can see right here we just get the name and the email of the logged in user. And now we need to secure our backend here. We need to secure this backend right here, this administration page. Now we need to check if the token here, let's get into first here, let's get into this file, get user data, and we need to check if the user data it is not valid. I'm gonna do this if type of user data it is equal to undefined, and I'm gonna return here. I'm gonna do window.location. I'm gonna do window.location.href. I'm gonna redirect the user to the login page if our user data it is undefined, because if I copy this, let me copy first this and see what we get in the console. Let me get into the console, and here let me copy this right there, and let's suppose we pass a key which doesn't exist within the local storage and see what we get. I'm gonna remove the T and copy. You can see here we're getting here a null, but also I'm gonna check the null. It should be better to check if it is an object, because type of an object it is null. Here if I do this type of null, we got an object. If now we are checking here, if user data it is null, we are going to redirect the user to the login page. Now let's create another function right here within the helper folder. We're gonna call it verify token, and here we're gonna do export function verify token, and the verify token is going to return an object right here. In the verify token, I'm gonna call this get user data function right here, user data. Then I'm gonna call it, let me import this function, and here I'm gonna create an object config, and then it is gonna have an headers, and we're gonna pass it. It is going to accept application slash JSON, but also the content type of our application that we send to the server. It is application slash JSON. Here you can see we got accept. It is the data accepted by our application and the content type that we send to the server. Now we need to add another key authorization, and then we're gonna do bear plus the token here. This, if we over the use data, it is returning a login response type, and we're gonna do this token. We're gonna get access to the token, and then if the user it is not valid, if the user provide a bad token, we are not going to hit any endpoint which is within the secure middleware here, because we need to create a post, and to create a post we need to be secure. We need to provide a valid token, and that's what we're gonna do. First, we're gonna try to create a post here. Now let's get into VueJs, VS Code, and here we need to return this line here, config, and then you can see it returns an object of headers. Now let's try to create a post. Now we need to create a post right here. Let's try to create a post here. We're gonna need to create a post, and to create a post we're gonna do first validation on our post. Now let's get into the post page, create post, and you can see here on the post page, create post. Let me click on the create post here. You can see we already handle validation here, and here we need to send to the server title and post content. And here let's create another folder, actions, and here we're gonna create an action, create post.ts, and then I'm gonna move within the off folder, within the login user. I'm gonna copy this and I'm gonna paste it within the create post. And if we go to the backend here, let's get into the post controller, and when we create a post here, let's scroll up. You can see here, and when we create a post we just return a message, post created. We need to specify the return type of our post here, post response type. It is going to be a message. Here I'm gonna move this and tap our function. Here we're going to say it is going to be create post HTTP, and here I'm gonna tap this function right there. And also here I have to change the endpoint. It is going to be post. And another thing we have to do, let me remove this. Here we need to pass also an interface of a created post. Here I'm gonna pass here the createPost input interface within this function. Here I'm gonna pass it as a parameter. Let me do this, createPost inputs. And then here you can see we need to change this header. We need to call another function. You need to call another function here, config, and then I'm gonna call verify token function. Here we need to provide an header which have an authorization, because here if we over the config, you can see it is an authorization key, and this authorization key holds a token. And this token, it is going to allow us to get access to data or to get access to protected resource. Now we need to do this. We need to provide here a token. We're gonna use destructuring. I'm gonna extract the headers. Let me get into the verify token, and here the header should have this H. Let's get into the createPost and pass here the headers. I'm gonna remove this, and then here you can see we just sent an header which contains an authorization key. Now we need to get into the post page. Here we have to call this createPost HTTP within the createPost page. Here I'm gonna use here a sync, and here await. I'm gonna create a data.await, and then I'm gonna call this create HTTP post, and then I'm gonna pass it this post input that value, and then the next thing is I'm gonna wrap this within try catch, and here I'm gonna call the show error function that we created in toast notification folder. I'm gonna pass it error dot message, and here you can see we are getting here an error. I'm gonna type the error of any type right now. And now I'm gonna type it, and I'm gonna create another function right here. I'm gonna create a constant, sorry, it's not a function, const loading status, and then a ref false, and then I'm gonna call the loading status here value, gonna pass it false, and here I'm gonna do this. This is going to be first, it is going to be to true, and then once done, it is going to be to false. And we need also to import also the base button, because we are going to use the base button. Import base button, and the base button, it is going to, I'm gonna remove this here. I'm gonna do this base button, and if we over our base button, you can see that it has two property, label and loading. Property, it is going to be, the label is going to be the create post, and the loading property, it is going to be overloading loading status. That's what we do right here. And then here we need to, here we are getting the response. Here, if we, this is the response of the create post, it returns, I think it returns a message. And here we're going to call another method within the toast notification, which is success message. Here you can see if we go within the toast notification, you can see here this method is located within the toast notification, and I'm gonna pass it data.message. Here you can see, because here our store method, it is returning a message, and now here we need to display a message that we just created a user. Now here let's try to test this function. Okay, I think everything is right there. Now let's call this create function and see if it works. And here the first thing I'm gonna do is to try to send. Here you can see we got an error, syntax error. I think it is a saver error. Let's get into the network and try to create a post. Here you can see we got an error within the post controller on line 21. Let's get into it and remove it. Here we got an error. We forgot to add here a semicolon. And then here within the registration, I need to add something right here. Await, we need to await the validation, because the validate function returns a promise of Boolean. and then here we need to type here. We need to pass here another title. We need to provide the title. I'm gonna say what is TypeScript, and then here the content, and then I'm gonna hit this createPost function. If I hit it, you can see we just created a post. You can see post created, and let me create another post here, and here let me create another post. I'm gonna say what is type annotation content, and then here I'm gonna hit the post content, and you can see here when we send we send this query to the server, you can see our server returns a message post created, and if we see the payload, we are saying we are sending to the server the title, what is type annotation and content. But also if you go within the header tab, headers, you're going to see that we are sending also the authorization header. Let me scroll down and show you what we are sending here. We are sending an authorization here. You can see this is the token that we are sending to the server. If I get into the createPost HTTP function, and let's move to verify token and try to comment this line authorization, you're going to see that it is not going to accept here. And let's try to create another post. Let's say what is JS, and here I'm going to pass it content and try to create a post. You're going to get a message unauthenticated, and it's working, guys. Now let's get into the verified token.ts and uncomment this line right there. And we need to do one more thing within the createPost page here. We need to initialize our inputs by doing value that's equal this empty object, and I use type assertion. I assert it. You can go check it out, my TypeScript course. I teach type assertion. If you watch this video, you're gonna know what is a type assertion. Here I'm using type assertion. Let me do this. This is a type assertion. Yeah, you can go check it out. And but also we need to initialize the validation. I'm gonna do reset, and everything it is working pretty well. Here you can see that everything it is working pretty well. And that's pretty much it, guys, for this video. In the next video, we're gonna we're gonna interact with the logout endpoints, and also we're gonna display the list of posts. I see you there.